Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an instructive game to share with you from the Clash of Generations 2. This was a match of 6 classical games between 14-year-old super talent Yagiz Kaan Erdogmus, playing the white pieces here, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Alright, this was game 5 of 6, the only decisive game of the match. Erdogmus winning in the end. 3.5 to 2.5, playing at an extremely high level. We have Ruy Lopez, A6, exchange variation. From here, white castles. Collecting the pawn is met with the typical fork, queen d4, winning the material right back. So it is castles. Now this is a threat. Relying on queen d4 no longer going to be the same. With rook e1 right around the corner, black will get hurt on the e-file. So how to defend the e-pawn? Here are a few ways black can approach it. None of the above. In this one, queen f6, yet another way to defend. Central break, e takes d, and before recapturing the pawn, development with tempo. Certainly sensible. Queen d6. How to recapture the pawn. In the game, knight captures pawn is played. Why not recapture with the queen and point to, hey, I'm developing a new piece? Well, here's a train of thought or two to consider. If you recapture with the queen, you're welcoming a queen exchange, and should you really be welcoming a queen exchange when your king is castled and black's is not? The dynamics are more likely to favor white with the queens on, while that black king is in the center. In the end, the knight recaptures. It's true black can insist on a queen exchange, if he really wanted to, here, playing c5, knight moves, and there you go. A downside, you've weakened d5, and there's a nice jump in the queen knight's future. Okay. With this last exchange of pawns, black's e-pawn for white's d-pawn, a big factor surfaces, majorities. White works with a healthy kingside majority, and black has an unhealthy queenside majority. White's majority can on its own create a passed pawn. Black's majority cannot say the same. This is significant. This shows up in this game. An excellent example for majorities. From here, bishop e7 is played. Now, why doesn't the knight go to its favorite square in this position? Well, it's because black would lose. There's e5. A fork, and if you take here, you're running into a pin. Blocking here, okay, you're just asking for trouble. Knight f3, you're on the queen defending the bishop. There's a mate threat on d8. Winning position here for white. Is this maybe yet another reason to have captured on d4 with the knight in this position? Is the capture on d4 also having an influence on black's kingside development? Knight can't go to its favorite square at this moment. Okay, in this game, it's bishop e7. Normally, you wouldn't want to exchange off one of your bishops playing with the bishop pair here, but okay, queen's still on, king in the center, knight f6, there's trouble. White declines this dark square bishop exchange. Falls back here to e3. Well, that's interesting. Why not initiate the exchange? Well, for one, the knight is helped somewhat, and the knight and bishop coordinate well in f5, each in a spot to support a pawn break. With white's move, bishop e3, white is playing against this knight, a struggling piece in this game. Black continues here with knight h6. If knight f6 is played, f3 is strong. F-pawn for black obstructed. Very nice setup here, limiting the knight and light square bishop. Okay, black's approach here, knight h6. F pawn is free to advance. Maybe there is a break in black's future. Pop quiz, how would you respond here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, in the game queen d2 is played. This is one of the top moves. Now is not a time to develop the queen knight. That would run into knight g4, hitting the bishop, threatening mate 1. Nice double attack there. It says you could play h3. That's a way to keep the knight out of g4. In the case of queen g6, hitting a pawn, pinning a pawn, threatening a pawn, there is queen f3 holding on to those 2 points. A move that is not considered top, f3, keeps the knight off of g4, but it weakens the dark squares maybe a bit too much. It says f5 is strong here, and if white goes for a line hunting some material, this one here, black has compensation in a couple forms. One, development, rook's connected, white's rook's not. And 2, dark square problems maybe nearby for white. Okay, we do not see f3, h3, and certainly not knight c3, queen d2, and black's response is c5. Knight g4, there is a nice reply, bishop f4. c5 in this position. White spent about 12 minutes at this point and plays knight e2. Another move that may have been considered here is knight b3. And after a queen exchange, black will have to do something about this pawn. b6 is the way. Bishop f4, how to defend this pawn? It says bishop d8 is top. Now, it's true the bishop on d8 is not so bright, but black can also point to the knight on b3. Not so great either. Another path here, it says the king can step up to this opened file, a very temporary pit stop, destination c6. Okay, interesting way to quickly defend c7. In the end, white decides on a more central post for the knight. Knight e2. Queen exchange, bishop e6 is played here. Knight g4, no problem. You're kicking the bishop to an even better square. Targets a pawn. More development. From here, white restricts the knight, plays h3. Playing bishop f4 is not an inconvenience to black. Queenside castle, defense of the pawn, rook activity. So, restriction, playing against the knight. Queenside castles, knight f4, bishop f6, what to do about the b pawn. White had a good think here. About 32 minutes was spent at this stage. I imagine white was considering the capture on e6 before addressing the threat here on b2. Doesn't go for it. What maybe keeps white away from capturing on e6, part of the reason, I imagine, is that this square has now opened up for the knight to quickly get back into the ball game. From there, it has a few forward jumps. Not sure how great a deficiency it is for black to take on this isolated e-pawn. In the end, he does not take on e6. He may have also been weighing a certain response by black after c3, which black does not end up playing. I'll touch on what that is soon enough. He addresses the threat on b2 here with c3. Pop quiz, how would you respond here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, there's a bit of a shift in the evaluation after black's next move. Plays a very natural looking move. Rook h to e8 activates his last piece, though, okay, this knight still needs some work. Rook h to e8 is played here. A top move is bishop g5. This is what white may have been weighing before playing c3, this possibility. Bishop g5 is top And an idea here is that if knight captures bishop, black can insert bishop captures bishop in this position. It says best from here, knight c4, pawn takes knight, knight takes bishop. Here's the thing. If white goes in for knight captures rook, there's bishop captures knight. And while the white is temporarily up the exchange, bishop for rook, this knight is trapped. This knight on the edge with this line serving a purpose, and the knight will fall. Okay, black does not play this top move. It's rook h to e8, knight captures bishop, rook recapturing, keeping the structure as is, rook a to e1, bishop e7, may be ready to challenge the pawn with f5. Forget about it. The healthy majority is now rolling. Black at this stage plays g5, and there's another shift in the evaluation. We're looking at about plus 1.1 after g5. The top move is f6. F6, why might you not want to play f6? Well, the rook no longer defends the knight. It says white can take here, and this isn't very appealing. Defend the knight. Again, you're playing with a much healthier structure here as white. Black doesn't want to cut off the rook's defense of the knight. No f6 here. Instead, tries to clamp down on the weakness behind g4, one of the weaknesses, f4. White advances f4. G takes f. Bishop takes knight. Back home. Knight f3. Big difference here. Quality of the knights. Follow-up is f6. Why not knight f6? Knight g5, fork, f7 will fall. So black restricts the knight. Pop quiz, how would you respond here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, I've devoted some time here to this talk about pawn majorities. There is a weak pawn on the king side here for white, and this is now a window to get rid of it. We see e5, c4, king improvement, f takes e, rook takes, knight takes. You're on the pawn here. What are we now staring at with the pawns on the king side? A healthy 2-to-1 majority. The king in a much better spot to also assist in the king side pawn advances. No entry points, no great entry points here for the black rook, by the way. d2 covered, d3 covered, d4 covered. Even if there was a check, there's a block. Black is lost here. Let's see the conversion. c4 defended, g5. Yet again, even at this late stage, white continues to play against this knight. Square opens up for it. h4. Knight e7, h5, pawns march on, bishop preserved. Black goes in for the fork. We play this knight for bishop imbalance. Knight f7, you're on the rook, you're defending a pawn. Rook g8. King h3. From here, king d7 is played. If bishop captures pawn, runs into a pin. If rook g7, you can take the knight. There's no taking advantage of a pin. There is no great pin here with the knight and rook on the same color square. The knight can move and defend the rook. So that's not going to work out, nor is h6 because of knight captures h6. And rook is hit. You move the rook. The knight has a bunch of jumps in mind, a fork nearby, winning the exchange. My point, this g5 pawn is poison. King d7 is played. King g4. King e7. Final pop quiz, what is your move? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, a clock update here. We are 33 moves into this game, and Erdogmus has about 3 minutes remaining to MVL's 30 minutes. There is a 30-second increment throughout, and there is also a 30-minute bonus time once move 40 is reached. White continues here in the best way, a winning way, plays G6. A good 2 minutes spent on this key move. White will soon be forcing through a passed pawn. Finally, this majority is producing something significant. A very dangerous passed pawn. Black's response here is to take on G6. What are the alternatives? If you, let's say, advance with your majority, King F5, G6 is secure, Knight is secure, Knight is a great pest to the rook. Couple squares you can't make use of, nearby pin and win of the bishop, dominant king position here for white. So that's not very helpful, nor would King E6 be helpful. Boxing out, covering F5, there's Knight G5 with a fork. If you don't want to lose that pawn, trading bishop for knight is not going to save you. 2-1 majority, dominant king position, completely winning for white. So black's approach is to take on G6, and now the H pawn gets to sneak right by. From here, bishop captures pawn is played. Otherwise, you're going to have to sacrifice the rook for the pawn shortly. H7, no holding that up, and the knight covers that promotion square. So bishop captures pawn it is. Knight captures bishop. Completely winning here for white. Let's see the conversion. Rook D8. A check is included. That's move 37. The only reason I could really assign for including the check is to bring it a step closer to time control. Move 40. King E6. Now the rook comes back, defending the second rank. And from here, we just improve the pieces. King moving towards the center. Knight getting back in the ball game. A pawn saved. B4. Pressure on A3. A takes B. C takes B. No more capturing. King steps over the E4. That's move 43. Black resigns. The C pawn will be won shortly from here. There's not much black can do about this simple plan. If the game continued with the pawn captures, what we're looking at, 2 passed pawns versus knight imbalance, but these 2 passed pawns are so far back that they pose no serious threat to white. If the game continued with, let's say, cutting off the king, so it can't cross, there's knight here, you're on the pawn and the rook, and if rook D3, you take time out to defend your remaining pawn. You're going to need that one to win. And next up, you take the pawn and you have a passed pawn to work with. These ideas are in the air. Dominant king and knight position here. Black king, really a non-factor. Anyhow, fantastic game here by Erdogmus. He's really had a remarkable past 12 months. This mini match, final note here, he has improved his rating by 11 points. And with that, in the live ratings, he is now, as only a 14-year-old, ranked 47th in the world. Phenomenal player. Anyhow, your thoughts with this one, feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.